I'm Denise Chinapin, Technology Portfolio Executive at BETSoftware.
And I'm Zandile Mkhwanazi, CEO at GirlCode.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking, a GirlCode podcast in partnership with BETSoftware, where we talk to and about women in the tech space. We want to be able to leave you with some inspiring quotes, inspiring information in terms of what women are doing in this environment.
Thank you. Today we're excited to have a graduate from BETSoftware, Avantika Devnath. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Avantika. It's lovely to obviously have a fellow BETS team member here. I know you mentioned that you are a graduate. You told us a little bit about that, but can you tell us a little bit more in terms of your role, what it is that you are currently doing here at BET, and essentially your journey up until this point with us?
Okay, so I started off as an intern and I got a chance to go through all of the departments. And when I was done with that, I got to choose where I'd like to be in my last 2 months. And I obviously chose the dev space. And then I came back this year as a graduate and I'm a part of Global Support Live Developers. So at the moment, I'm currently handling live issues as well as taking on some business analyst work. So I'm doing both at the same time. I'm a bit shocked that I still stuck to it because when I got here, I started off in QA and I was like, no, I'm going to be in QA. And then eventually I was like, no, back to dev. And I'm stuck there now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, you said internship, which then leads me into the space of where I know BETSoftware also does bursaries, right?
Yes.
In the field. Are you one of our bursary?
Yes, I am. I've been a bursary recipient for 2 years.
Now, that's fantastic, right? Because often these days education costs a lot of money and it's not easy for everyone to be able to go in and pursue their dreams. And obviously, you know, you're sitting here having gone and achieved exactly that. Obviously, the bursary has helped to get you to this point. I'd like to actually understand a little bit in terms of from a salary point of view, when we're talking about understanding and negotiating in the June month, this is youth month. We want to be able to start talking to and understanding how do the youth of today negotiate and come up with what is essentially a reasonable sort of salary. What was your sort of take in terms of how you actually got onto that?
Okay, so in terms of like the industry, I've done my research and also I put together what I have to offer to the company, like my experience and the knowledge that I have that I can share with the team, and also how fast it would take for me. It would take me to perform with the team, and it's mainly my experience and performance, heavily on performance though. So the more you focus, the faster you grow.
I agree. Zandile, on your side, how has that sort of looked? I know you've been in this industry for a while now as well.
Yeah.
What did your first negotiation look like?
Yeah, I think straight out of varsity, I also did a bit of research, right, to understand what people in the industry were earning. And certainly when I got to my graduate program, it was a tech company. There was obviously a standard offer for all incoming graduates, but I did believe that I deserved a little bit more, and that's purely from some of the experience that I had, which other graduates didn't necessarily have. For one, I had completed my master's, and secondly, I was during my master's year, I also worked on a project with some students from MIT. So I think that added to my resume.
Yes.
To show that look, I have added value to bring to the organization, and I've had some experience working and building within a teamwork dynamic beyond university. So those were like my negotiation leverages when I had to speak to my boss. Of course it was a frightening process as well, because you think to yourself, will they say yes? Will they say no? Will they say you're reaching here? Like, you're a graduate, you don't really have work experience. But I think kind of researching and bringing facts to the table helps when you're thinking about salary negotiation. But at the same time, you also have to understand that some organizations, it's standard. And someone who's new and coming in, that's the offer that you have to accept or decline, should you feel that you don't want it,
Yes.
right? And I'm sure like within Bet Software, you guys obviously have a way to standardize graduates coming in and offering them a certain salary. I don't know if there's anything else that you consider that would make you pay someone a little bit more than somebody else.
We do, actually. A lot of what we do right now is, yes, while we're looking at the graduates that come in, not all of our graduates are graduates as in the first time they've ever actually entered a work environment. We've got some beautiful success stories of people who have changed careers midway, done a little bit of work at a different company because this was actually what they felt their true calling was. So going from, I remember there was a candidate that came through at one stage who had spent time doing mechanical engineering and realized that, hey, that's not something that I enjoy. I want to go and do IT.
Yeah.
And spent a little bit of time doing, this home shop IT kind of work. And that experience has actually parlayed that into an opportunity where we've got a graduate who's been accepted because of this extra that he's actually done. So the experience factor certainly counts, because as much as we want to standardize, and I do believe that that is necessary, because again, if we are having to benchmark in the industry to an extent, give them a range of this is where a graduate would sit with so many years of experience and this kind of a qualification and knowledge, you want to be able to make sure that you are working within that. And the beauty of a benchmark or a range allows you to work within that frame, right? You don't go too much and then all of a sudden everyone else is paying their graduates 50% less than what you are, and you're this. So it tends to skew the data in the market. So having some of those sort of conversations, understanding what each person is bringing to the table from a value point, allows for that fair exchange to actually happen.
Yeah, actually, Denise, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about something that is in the sort of a lot of people in the industry, recruitment industry, are talking about now, or employees in general, where they're saying, if your salary is market related, why aren't you putting it on the job spec, right? Like, why aren't you saying this is the salary? So I'm just kind of interested in your take on that, because I'm sure like there's a lot of nuances to that in terms of putting an exact number or even a range, which most companies don't, right? It just says market related. So I don't know, from Bet Software's point of view and your point of view, is like, is there a reason, if it's market related, why is it not, being put out there? Yeah.
Look, at Bet, we certainly consider the markets. I mean, when we look at the regions, even there is a disparity. But how we approach it with that Bet is fantastic in the sense, and I say fantastic because I certainly am aligned with that. When I look at a salary, like for example, should we post it or should we not post it? There's a couple of things to consider, right? You're having to first consider your individual or your market, who's your audience. Are people then literally just chancing, putting their CVs up there and essentially wasting recruitment time for screening because they saw the salary was what they were wanting to achieve, wanting to have? And that's one part of it. The other thing is, the moment you put a number on something, you kind of almost have to stick to it, right? So my question then to them would be, okay, so if I put 50,000 Rand on a software engineer job, right? Where does that leave you in terms of how much more from a potential point you could earn? So the way we do it is we have the numbers in mind. We take into consideration the various, the regions, what the industry is actually telling us. And that industry info often comes in from the various talent tools that allow a collective of companies to be able to come in, put in their salary data, and then give you an acceptable sort of range. But what Bet Software does differently is that we don't peg you into a number. When we interview you based on your skills, based on how you align to that job specification, right? We look at you with the potential of you could be worth more. And I can say that confidently because I know of people that we have in the business who actually are in that space. They're real life people who, in the building, they're walking around, they're working for us, and they're happy and they're engaged. So I think the real thing here is to be able to understand or turn it full circle into, if I know I am worth 60, why would I want to apply for a job that's saying 50?
That's fair enough. And I agree also, because it's quite a heated debate right now, right? Of course, because part of it is it's contributing to the gender pay gap that we've seen, and a lot of it, which is to a degree where women are getting paid less than men. And a lot of, sort of reports and stats point to that, where women are almost earning less than men, and obviously as you progress, you never quite catch up. So the gap remains, and even worse of it becomes wider, because at some point as women you probably take time off, you go have children, and all of these things that come into it. So it's quite interesting to also think about how do we then tackle that aspect when you're talking about money, from someone starting out, right, accepting a certain salary which might be lower than the benchmark, which then impacts them in the long term. So I think maybe from your point of view, right, because you are somebody that's starting out, have you really put in thought into researching kind of what your career trajectory needs to look like from a money point of view, and what you potentially would be accepting after the graduate program, to make sure that as you progress, it doesn't become less? Because realistically, if I'm starting at 16 and someone is starting at 6, you'll never catch up.
Yes.
We might be doing the same job, but you'll never catch up. So I'm just curious if that's something you've thought about in planning out your career and kind of where you want to see yourself.
Okay, for me, it's very dependent on your performance. So I believe if you work hard, you're going to get there. I'm just stuck on that. It's performance for me. So it's literally, if you work hard, you will get there. So.
But what are the tools also? So that's great, right? And I think a lot of young people need to understand that you need to put in the hard work. You need to provide that value. But what are the tools you think that someone could equip themselves with to be able to get there, right? Because we also want to be practical about it and sort of not just say, do well and people recognize you. Historically, people don't recognize you from just doing well. So I don't know, do you have tools or things that you've equipped yourself with, or knowledge or skills that you believe you could then put on the table and say, this is what I have, this is what I've done, and therefore this is how much I should be getting?
I feel that would be to come in time, because I am fresh, so it's dependent on what I would be able to equip myself with. So right now, there's not much that I can say, okay, there's a whole lot of things. This is it on the table, and we're going to work with this. So at this point, I can't really tell. So it's just in time.
No, I think that's fair enough. If anything, skill set, upskilling yourself, right, would also be a key factor, I would imagine, that you look for when thinking about promoting someone or increasing their salaries.
It's the continuous learning. The learning never stops.
Yeah. No, and in the dev space, it can't stop, right?
Yes. Now, Avantika, you mentioned something quite, I think, profound for what I would put you at a Gen Z, right? You said hard work and performance and time to get there. Now, living in a world where there's this instant gratification, I'm trying to actually understand where is this, where are you grounded in terms of how is it that you are able to look, given given the generation that you are in, how is it that you are able to actually say, I'm willing to put in the hard work, whereas then you've got peers obviously saying, I want it now. I want this now. I want that job with that pay now. Yeah. What's different?
And I want to be manager within the first year.
Exactly.
I feel like if you put your mind to it, you'll constantly work towards it. Everybody has a very different mindset and everybody has different goals. And what I'm able to achieve and what the next person is able to achieve in the same amount of time is very different. So it may take me a longer time, it may take them a way longer time than that. But like I said, if you know what you want, you have your mindset on something and you work towards it, you'll be steady. It's just all about consistency. So if I say, okay, I'm going to be here in 5 years, I'm going to stay consistent and I'm going to constantly work towards it. I'm going to do what I need to do, continuous upskilling, learning what I have to learn. And I think the main thing is having guidance, like having someone to look up to and you know what they've been through. And you're going to say, okay, this is going to be my journey and I'm going to get there. But yeah, I would say that's about it.
So then what does your 3 or 5 year journey look like?
Okay, so I would say from now till the end of this year, it's just upskilling to obviously catch up with my team members and be experienced enough to play a very supportive role, I would say, even being a grad.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, I would like to continue with my honors next year. And because I'm going to be specifically stuck to the dev space, I would continuously upskill in that relevant department. Yeah.
Wow, honors.
But it's going to continue and continue. It's never going to stop.
Honors.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously we work in an environment that is high-paced, right?
Yes, very high-paced.
And where you are based right now with global support, that is non-stop.
It's non-stop.
It's non-stop. So how do you see yourself being able to juggle honors, you know, do all of the other things that you want to do? Because we also have to recognize that you're a young lady and you must have a social life. So how is all of that going to work in there?
It's the time management. So I've got to space out my personal life and my work life at the same time. So like I mentioned, upskilling is very important at this point, considering that I'm obviously very young and I've just entered the industry. So I would put that first before my personal or social life. Yeah.
Wow, not a lot of young people are willing to do that, right?
Yeah, it's just that the tech space, it's huge. And apart from it being females or males, whatever it may be, I feel like you have to remain consistent. And if you don't, if you're going to drop like even a little, you're going to fall way behind.
Yeah.
So it's very important to stay consistent for me.
That's amazing, and I applaud you for already having that mindset, right? Because not a lot of people, like you're saying, Gen Z, instant gratification. I want this now. I want to be manager, like after 12 months, you know. So having that foresight to say, look, it's going to take time. There's a lot to learn in the industry. I'm pretty new, so I need to accept that it's going to take me a bit of time to get to where I want to. I think it's amazing, and more young people need to have that type of mindset. I know like social media and seeing people being millionaires by 21 has given the illusion that, you know, things must happen now or else, you know, by the time I'm 30, I'm old. And that's not the case, you know. So I do applaud you for that. I think just also having the patience to kind of work towards what you want to get. I think that's what we needed. And that's the type of people we also want when we're thinking about putting people into our organizations, right? And people that, especially when you start talking salary, the value, you know, because once you upskill, that's the value you present and put on the table to say, look, I've committed for the past 12 months. I've upskilled, I've got my honors, I've got the certificate, I've done this and that. So that's what people need to realize. And I think maybe something else to touch on, just maybe to hear from you and maybe Denise, in terms of like one of the things that was a bit of a shock for me is like getting the first sort of pay slip, right? Or rather like accepting an offer and then getting money in the bank and it's not the same as the offer you accepted. I don't know if that happened to you, where some organizations don't actually show you like what your actual like net salary is going to be. And even young people don't realize that there's something called well, we know about tax, but you didn't realize that there's income tax that you get. So were you shocked to see, or you
No,
kind of knew?
I knew what I was
prepared.
expecting. I was prepared. Yeah.
And Denise, I don't know if within the organization it's something that you prepare young people in terms of understanding what your salary encompasses and what exactly you're going to get into the bank.
Yeah, we do at BET. And essentially, when we make an offer to a candidate that's presented with obviously the value, the amount that we want to be offering you, as well as then listing all the benefits that they have access to. So, it's something that they can easily reference. And then what we also do for them is we do what's called like a mock payslip. So we put together, if this is the initial sort of offer that we are making for you, you can see there's portions obviously set aside for your unemployment fund, the provident fund that we have on system. There's a whole other host of things that obviously we would accommodate for. And so the individual actually also has an opportunity to be able to see what tax bracket they fall in. So that value in terms of what's going to be the taxed amount, they are in a position to be able to see what they're going to end up with at the end of the day. So if an offer of 30,000 was actually put on the table for a candidate, by the time they actually end up with all of the various sort of percentages off there, you would be looking at, it's like a 21, 22. I mean, I don't know what the math is exactly for a 30K salary, but it does then allow the individual to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to be able to expect to see in my bank account at the end of every month, which really helps them decide as well whether they are happy. And in some cases, we've actually had people who have requested to renegotiate, actually put a counter offer on the table. It's seldom that we would actually get that, but it is certainly a conversation that we at BET we take seriously. We do take it into account. Yeah. But that element of education and stuff like that is actually, I believe, is absolutely important. I just want to circle back to obviously, we talked about negotiating, right? When to do. When to counter offer, when to actually ask for more. And I honestly believe that a huge part of that comes from a position of a woman or that individual having confidence to ask, right? Now, I know this is your first job, which, experience-wise, you're probably going to be limited in terms of what you can actually comment on. But Sandile, you've been in the industry for a while. Do you agree? What are your thinking? What's your thoughts around the confidence aspect? Because I've been in an industry where, we both are industry where, men, women, men literally don't second guess themselves, right? Yes. We do it to ourselves all the time. Yeah. So I believe bringing confidence to the table when we are having that discussion is crucial.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And we've seen it with our GirlCoders, right? So we try and prepare them for job interviews, for salary negotiation, and anything else pertaining to them getting the first job. And I think the confidence, you can only have it. Someone said it's a muscle, right? You must constantly use it and speak up. And that's how you get better at it. But more than that, for you to be confident in something, you have to have all the facts and things that are going to back you up. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. If you have not emotions and feelings like, oh, I feel like, at this point I should be a millionaire. No, it's this is the facts. I've got this. Yes, my graduates, my fellow graduates or fellow colleagues are here, but I've gone above and beyond. I've assisted, if you're already in the job, I've assisted on other projects which were not part of my responsibility. So I think that's what we try and tell. You can accept the offer at the very beginning because you don't feel like, from which point am I negotiating? But once you're in there, it's important to go the extra mile. Like you said, you're young. You have, that energy. This is the time to go the extra mile so that you can go further quicker, right? So that you settle into your career. So that's what we tell them. And then with that extra mile, you have things to say. But I've done this and I've done that, and I've helped out other teams. I've upskilled myself in other things, and I realized that we didn't have a QA, so therefore I jumped in. So that's how you build your confidence muscle, by arming yourself with the relevant skill set, the knowledge to be able to then come in front of somebody and say, but I can show you why I deserve this much. Yeah.
And then let's talk about loyalty. Often, sometimes we prioritize loyalty over having to have a discussion, and an honest discussion and an open conversation with our managers, for example, around a salary. How do we negotiate? How do we actually sit at that table and have a conversation? Still factoring loyalty, of course, but not necessarily having ourselves take a back seat. Have you been in a situation like that before?
Sure. So, I don't really have a lot of work experience. I worked for 2 companies and then I became an entrepreneur, right? But even with the first company that I worked with, after I left, I actually went back, like after 8 months or something like that. And part of it is the loyalty. But I think also because from the very beginning, me and my manager had a very open relationship in terms of being able to talk about anything. And, there's open door policy, like whatever is bothering you or whatever, things you want to bring to the table. So I think I was very fortunate to have someone like that being also my first boss, because that again gave me confidence to be able to be bold in my asks. So yeah, I'm lucky in that I've never sort of encountered that type of situation. I don't know if you have.
No.
Yeah. You're just starting out in your career.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously with you starting out your career, Zandile and I, there's a wealth of knowledge and experience here, and I want to be able to give you an opportunity to perhaps maybe ask a question. Is there some sort of advice that you would want from us that we could share with you?
Okay, so in terms of negotiating, right, like I've mentioned, my plan is to continuously upskill. And because I'm coming in as a graduate, how would I know when it's an appropriate time to negotiate? Because, for example, I would say if I'm here for 6 to 8 months and we'd just say 5 certifications, and I feel like it's a lot towards my upskilling, how would I know if it's an appropriate time to ask or request for negotiation?
I think it comes back to what Zandile said around her relationship with her manager. Having an open conversation with him or her is really going to make the difference in terms of being able to get the right guidance from the right place, right? You know that you've got a plan already mapped out for yourself in terms of what you want to do by when. And sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it's not going to. It's going to take you longer, something's going to go wrong or something's going to happen. But the thing is to focus on that. But open conversation, I believe, is absolutely critical here, and having a relationship with your manager, who will in turn be able to give you that right sort of advice that you need. You need to do this. These are the extra things that we might be looking for. Here's an opportunity there. Mm-hmm. And then it's really up to you to step up, to own it, to go into that. And I think that's probably what would really make a difference there.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add on, sometimes it's maybe not your manager, right? Maybe that's, you don't have the best relationship in the world. But I think you can also look to a senior peer that you feel you can have that. The most important thing is being able to have an open conversation, to be like, listen, this is what I've been doing. Do you think I should take this to the end? How do I take it to our manager or HR, whoever's in charge? So having, and that's the mentor element, having a mentor and someone you can go to and have that, because then they can guide you and say, listen, from my experience, having been here for 10 years, this is the best way to do it. don't do it now, wait until you've worked for 12 months and then bring it forward, right? So I think look for the right mentors and people that can guide you if it's not your manager, because I know sometimes the manager or your direct manager is not necessarily your bestest of friends. It happens. But if it is also your manager, then it's good, because then you can just ask informally first and then say, what do I need to prepare to be able to come forward and say, okay, this is what I've done. Could I get a raise?
Okay.
Sandila, it's that time from our episode where we talk about our Women Crush Wednesday. So who's yours today?
So today mine is Kimberly Bryant. So she's the founder and CEO of GirlCode in America. And yeah, she's just done a lot to expose young girls to technology and showing them that they do belong in the space and giving them the resources, the tools, and the opportunities to participate. So she is, someone that I admire. She's very inspirational, and she's grown the organization, to be a global organization. So just someone I've followed for a long time. And today I think that's my Women Crush Wednesday. And you?
Mine would be Sheryl Sandberg. I've read her book Lean In, and it really has been quite an inspiration in my journey, obviously, as a technology executive, in that space, in terms of how to juggle the home life and the work life and the career and the money and all of those sort of things. So I think, she takes that one from me today. Cool. I want to say thank you so much, Avantika, for joining us on this podcast today.
Thank you.
Some valuable insight that I'm confident that our viewers are going to enjoy and really sort of eat up and get into. So we have some exciting news coming up, obviously, as our next episode, where we are going to focus on the various careers in tech. And if you are interested in not just where development is, but all of the other careers in tech, we've talked about now cybersecurity, we've talked about the graduate aspect in terms of the development pieces, but we're looking forward to obviously having a fantastic panel roundtable discussion with some other experts in the field. We look forward to seeing you at our next podcast. Feel free to engage, share, follow us on our social media platforms, as well as engage in conversations. Until next time.